Right FM with all-time favourites, Saturday morning on your weekend supplement. I'm Michael Cowan. Well, now at this time of the morning, we turn our attention to the Business Edge, brought to you in association with the Irish Management Institute. If you're a regular listener to the weekend supplement, you'll know that our life coach Tim Rooney brings us through some of the aspects of coaching as they affect our lives. But the business world and business community have also become very much aware of the area of coaching and its uses. And I'm in the company of specialist Georgina Corscadden from the IMI. Georgina, coaching is one of the tools you use in the process of developing managers.
Sure, yes, Michael. Good morning to you too. It's great to be here. Yes, it is. Coaching can be used as a style. It doesn't have to be something that's always prior agreed. It can be something really that gets the best out of people. It's a catalyst, if you like, to develop people, really to stretch them a little bit, sometimes more than they believe themselves they're capable of, but it can have extraordinary results, literally extraordinary results.
Now, it's something that I'm sure you tell me that practically every manager should not only be using for themselves, but should be able to use on the people that they are responsible for.
Absolutely. Coaching can be used in any situation, whether that's problem solving, whether that somebody comes for an issue, but equally let me also highlight it's not always problem related. It can be about growth and development for people and should indeed be used accordingly.
One of the principles that I think we've all learned from it is that it doesn't necessarily look over its shoulder. It's not historically based. There are very few tissues in boxes on the table when people sit down to use coaching.
Well, I guess you never fully know what's going to happen, and I guess it depends on what's going on for you. One particular I have an example of is quite often I'd focus on performance coaching. That may be interview related, but you need a lot of time to focus on what do people actually want to achieve. What is it they say when I want to be more confident or I want to communicate better? You really need to get to the heart of what it is that means to them. Otherwise, you end up going all over the place. You need to focus on what's important to them.
Now, in the IMI here, you use this as part of the development of, for example, young managers, new managers as well. Talk to me about the model of the process that you actually teach them.
Sure, it's a very simple model, and certainly the listeners at home can do this, and indeed some have tried it with their teenagers to good effect, and it's called the GROW model, which is a nice sort of way of putting it really, because it's developmentally focused, and it really stands for goals. What do people actually want to do? What's the reality? And that's the part really that the coach is really, best played to serve. The options that are available, and I'd like to come back to options if I may. And the final part is both the wrap-up, but also testing out very quickly if people have the will to really change what it is they want to change with. And an experienced coach can really, and an experienced manager, can really work that one through very clearly, usually quickly. If I may just take you through the example, let's say you have someone from the private sector and the public sector, and they go in at the first entry level in the organisation, and you happen to be assigned as their manager and you're coaching them, and the first thing they say to you is, well, I'm very ambitious, I have a lot to offer, and I really think I should be Secretary General or MD or CEO of this organisation, and they may or may not put a time span on it. It is important as a coach not to make a judgment call whether they have or have not the ability or indeed the ambition. The reality piece, obviously you start with defining why do they want it, what's important, what will they achieve when they get there, but the reality piece that you really serve well is by putting the reality check to it, as in, they're not going to make that step in one fell leap. It's not Pygmalion-like, it's small steps, one at a time. And the reality check is, what's the next level? What's the competencies, what's the experience, what is it you need to get to the next promotion and the next, etc., one at a time, so that indeed they may achieve that goal that they actually aspire to. The options piece really is very much about you define the goal, you define the reality they're currently in. The options is, and this is an interesting one that most people tend to do, is they think it's about giving people the benefit of their wisdom, which may not be the case. It's very much about teasing out for other people what they perceive to be the options. And this is very important, because if I decide to tell you, Michael, what it is you need to do, be that climbing a mountain or doing a marathon, it's very easy for you, particularly in management and business function, for you to abdicate that responsibility and simply say, well, you told me what to do and I did it, but it didn't work, and I could have told you if you'd asked me. So the key point is ownership. Ownership creates sustainable improvement for people. So it is much better if I, as a coach, can actually facilitate out you defining what options are available as you see them, not what I see them as, but what you see them as. And that's very important. As I say, a small sort of cameo shot would be someone approaching me, and their very first opening dialogue was, as a very senior manager, if I don't leave this organisation now, I'm going to leave out of a box. Well, most normal people would react by saying, well, of course, then you must go. You are there as a coach, you're there as a reflection, as a holding up a mirror, as a sounding board. The reality was, yes, it was very easy for me to see what they needed to do, but they needed to see it. That is much more powerful when it becomes self-ownership. And the last piece is really about, do they have the will to change? And as I said earlier, you can very quickly work out whether people do or don't. But it's very important that they actually summarise, that they wrap up for themselves, that they hear and voice what it is they're going to do.
Now, it sounds, I was listening, taking you through that, if every manager was able to use that set of skills, that they would certainly move themselves and their organisation forward. Is this something for a specialist to do within an organisation, or should you see this being something that practically anybody who works with people should take on?
Sure, I think that most people tend to assume, because they probably think of Sunday morning shouting on GAA and football pitches, and that's what coaching is. It's a version of it. Yes, organisations do use people as specialists in that particular area of coaching, but I think, and certainly my experience over the last number of years, many managers that we've talked to are using coaching as a style and are finding it extremely helpful. It is about developing their team, which is what managers should be doing anyway. So no, I think that in reality, sometimes not having experience specifically in an area can be an advantage, because it allows you to ask sometimes the obvious questions.
Finally, Georgina, take us through the notion or the idea that if a person gets themselves in their life in balance outside the organisation, that the organisation benefits, because some managers are still a little bit squeamish about the idea of getting involved in the whole person.
Sure, and I guess we're in the 21st century now, so it's more okay to look at the whole person, and there are a huge amount of articles around about this. Obviously, it's going to make sense that if you make people feel valued, if their contribution is valued, then it is likely that they are going to give more. So it's a benefit to the organisation and the manager, but it's also a huge benefit to the individual. You don't necessarily want people to be coming to work stressed. There is enough of it around, least of all, transport and getting to work. So when they're there, if you can harness that positive energy and make it work for the person and for the organisation, then it's a win-win situation, both sides. So I think there is a real argument for suggesting that helping people to get everything into perspective means they bring the whole person to work, as opposed to three-quarters, and a stressed three-quarters at that.
Georgina Corscadden there from the IMI, bringing our series from the IMI, The Business Edge, to a close.